Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are jumping right into a totally fascinating, incredibly revealing piece of history. We're going to unpack a 1958 interview between the legendary journalist Mike Wallace and the ultimate master of surrealism himself, Salvador Dalí. We're going to completely decode the brilliant, and let's be honest, utterly bizarre mind of a man who deliberately blurred the lines between reality and dreams. And we'll see exactly what his carefully curated madness can teach us about our own reality. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that instantly pulls us right into Dalí's wildly unique world. Why on earth would someone drive a car completely packed to the roof with cauliflowers? I mean, for anyone else, that's just pure madness. But for Dalí, cauliflowers, lecturing in a diving helmet, carrying around rhinoceros horns, that was just everyday, perfectly sound logic. Let's look at how he actually justified all these wild eccentricities. Section 1. The Art of Personality. To truly understand Dalí, we first have to realize that his eccentricities were absolutely not random accidents. They were highly deliberate acts of creation. When Mike Wallace pressed him on why he sometimes acted like a buffoon or a clown, Dalí didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he compared himself to Charlie Chaplin. He pointed out that, sure, Chaplin was a genial clown, but he never painted masterpieces. Dalí's ultimate goal? He wanted to be a marvelous, genius clown who also happened to paint masterpieces. To him, combining the two was just 1,000 times more interesting.
And that thought brilliantly illustrates his core philosophy. For Dalí, the painting, the clowning, the over-the-top showmanship, it was all just one single manner to express his ultimate masterpiece, which was the total personality of Dalí himself. He was literally expressing his genius through his very existence. Think about that for a second. It's his fascinating, almost prophetic precursor to how people curate their personas on social media today. He recognized way ahead of his time that a public image isn't just a byproduct of fame, it's an entire art form in itself.
Section 2. Science of the Subconscious.
Beneath the famous melting clocks and crazy stunts was a surprising, deep obsession with hard science. During the interview, Dalí claimed his art was essentially a cosmogony. Now, cosmogony is basically a theory regarding the origin of the universe. But for Dalí, every painter simply paints the origin story of himself, and his personal universe was rooted heavily in the subconscious mind. In fact, he noted that he worked constantly while he was asleep, stating that literally all of his absolute best ideas came directly through his dreams. And, get this, he actually justified his wildest, most surreal imagery with hard mathematical science. So the crucial point is that those cauliflowers we mentioned earlier, Dalí claimed he was obsessed with their logarithmic curves. He saw rhinoceros horns as one of the most powerful biological symbols of modern chastity and spiritual strength. And his famous soft watches? He argued that while everybody laughed at them at first, modern nuclear physics later proved his concept of completely flexible spacetime. He genuinely believed his paintings were legitimate scientific prophecies. Which brings us right back to the diving helmet. When asked why he once gave a lecture with his head completely enclosed in a diving helmet, literally to the point where he almost suffocated on stage, he had a perfectly logical explanation within his own framework. It was a literal physical metaphor for penetrating the bottom of the subconscious sea. He was trying to bring his audience all the way down into the deep, dark waters of the mind, right alongside him.
Section 3. Adoring the Absurd.
Now, if you thought his approach to cauliflowers was wild, wait until we unpack his almost completely upside-down worldview. Dalí explicitly stated that he adored three things: luxury, old age, and weakness. And once again, he grounded these highly controversial takes in his totally unique interpretations of biology and physics. He tied luxury directly to the biological perfection of chromosomes and the concept of monarchy. He adored old age simply because he believed young people were, well, completely stupid. And he adored weakness because he saw it mirrored in the modern physics of protons, neutrons, and the fragile nature of antimatter. He pushed this paradoxical thinking even further by totally contrasting life and death. For Dalí, life is inherently erotic, and in his view, the erotic is automatically ugly. Death, on the completely opposite hand, removes the eroticism entirely. Therefore, it becomes noble, sublime, and entirely beautiful. He actually argued that the exact moment you become dead, everybody respects you 1,000 times more.
Section 4. Paradise Lost and Death.
This brings us to a really fascinating contradiction in Dalí's mind. He claimed to possess an extraordinary, almost superhuman power, the ability to clearly remember his thoughts and feelings from before he was even born. He described this intra-utero state not just in black and white, but as a literal paradise of luminous, glorious technicolor.
And here is the kicker. He even claimed that Dr. Sigmund Freud himself validated these visions as true, genuine intra-utero memories.
So let's map out this logic for a second. If the time before birth was an absolute paradise, then the exact moment of birth is literally paradise lost. If that is the case, and if death is noble and beautiful as he just claimed, then logically, impending death should be paradise regained, right? It should be something to look forward to.
Yet, when pressed on this by his interviewer, Dalí admitted to an intense, completely paralyzing fear of dying. He even carried a little piece of Spanish driftwood with him wherever he went just to ward off evil spells because he was deeply superstitious. So why on earth fear death if it's just a beautiful return to paradise?
Well, the answer lies in the massive paradox of his faith. He honestly confessed that he lacked sufficient conviction in his own growing religious beliefs. Even though a recent appendix operation had made him a lot more religious, his highly analytical intellect hadn't fully surrendered to that faith yet. He was left absolutely terrified that the technicolor paradise he lost at birth might not actually be waiting for him on the other side.
Section 5. Madness to Mysticism.
This intense internal battle over life, death, and faith forces us to look at his massive personal transformation. We see a really stark contrast between his youth and his later years. Dalí freely admitted that in his adolescence he was violent, sadistic, and masochistic. He literally admitted to throwing a friend off a rocky ledge and kicking a legless beggar. But in his later life, he claimed to be quiet, seeking mysticism and chastity. He said his wildly dangerous early libido was eventually completely sublimated into religion. Talk about a total 180.
Honestly, nothing shows his early chaos better than his incredibly bizarre courtship of his wife, Gala. To seduce her, his method was, well, extreme. Step 1, smear his body with his own blood. Step 2, tear his clothes to shreds. Step 3, rub evil-smelling fish glue all over himself. Why? Because in his totally distorted mindset at the time, he genuinely believed that terrible smell would be an incredibly attractive way to seduce her. You can't make this stuff up.
And Dalí fully owned up to this. He completely admitted that during this period, his mind was dangerously close to total madness. He bluntly described his own mind as being very close to a psychopathologic brain before Gala intervened and changed the entire trajectory of his life.
It was Gala who served as his ultimate anchor. According to Dalí himself, she brought real mysticism and real classicism into his life. She was the one who helped him channel all that dangerous, psychopathological energy entirely away from violence and redirect it towards the pursuit of chastity, spiritual strength, and the incredible, unforgettable showmanship we recognize today.
Which really brings us right down to the absolute core of why he acted the way he did. Dalí genuinely, deeply despised the collective uniformity of humanity. He wanted to inject pure, unadulterated surrealism into our rigid, everyday reality. He couldn't stand the mundane. Which is exactly why he joked about wanting to be served a cooked telephone instead of a grilled lobster at a restaurant. He wanted to entirely shatter our everyday expectations.
So, after breaking down the wild logic behind the cauliflowers, the soft watches, the fish glue, and that profound fear of death, we are left with one massive final question. Was Salvador Dalí truly a madman? Was he a prophetic genius whose mind grasped the physics of the universe in ways the rest of us just couldn't? Or was he simply the architect of the absolute greatest performance art of the 20th century? Maybe, just maybe, the real answer is all three. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this deep dive into Dalí's logic gives you a totally new lens through which to view his wonderful, weird world. Keep questioning the everyday reality around you, and I'll catch you next time.